I actually welcome you up directly on stage, Adriana and Jonas. Give them applause.
Oh, great to be back. 1 week since last time. How many of you participated in last week's session when we talked about resilience towards climate change? So that was a couple of you. Those who didn't participate here, it's available online for those of you who want to check in that video. Thanks for being here. And first of all, I would like to send my congratulations to all of you, not merely for participating in today's session, but I just saw this video from the World Economic Forum that Sweden is rated as the most innovative country in Europe, based on number of patents, digital learning, lifelong learning, and a couple of other categories. And I believe that why Sweden is top in the class of innovation is due to hubs like this, isn't it? Where we can share and collaborate under one roof and exchange ideas and such. So big congratulations on you guys from Ideon and to all of you participants here for becoming best in Europe in innovation.
Hey!
Now, we are from PwC, as we mentioned last week. I'm Jonas, this is Adriana, and we have a 2 weeks mini session about resilience. And resilience is quite close to our heart, as our purpose globally for PwC is to build trust in society and solve important problems. And especially to build trust, we believe resilience is a key factor in building that trust. So today we will talk about resilience, and Adriana, you're here to help me,
yes.
Because as last week I don't know much about climate change and I don't know much about business continuity that we were talking about today. But please introduce yourself.
So my name is Adriana Sava. I work at PwC and I work as a risk management consultant. In my daily job, I help companies identify risk, assess them, and then build plans to support that.
And I think you have a very interesting history that also ties into the group we have here with your experience from your former employer,
yeah.
Building a new finance organization and in that startup and scale-up phase.
Yeah, do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, so I started a company, a SaaS company, in 2014. There were 7 of us, and we had a plan to create a tool to help the aviation industry to document. It's like Word, but in the cloud. And we started small, and the company now is around 80 people around the world, in Singapore and the US. And just by having a good foundation when you build that company, we're starting to document procedure, role descriptions, assessing risks early. That helped us when we grew. When you hire new people, we had a good foundation to stand on, which was amazing.
Yeah. So any of you who also wants to learn everything about how to build a company, talk to Adriana about that. Maybe not everything, but something.
We're writing processes at least.
Yeah, indeed.
And identifying risks.
So business continuity, what is that?
It's like it's being I almost forgot what I was supposed to say.
That's that phrase
so
you always use.
So it's hoping for the best, but be prepared for the worst. It's in those times where you work hard and you want to make sure that you can continue to do your business in case of disruption.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And I mean, disruption is more or less everywhere in times of climate crisis and European war, and I mean, disruption is all around us. I mean, business continuity is something that everyone should be aware of and attend to. But when you say it like that, it seems quite easy.
Yeah.
I bet business continuity is a bit more complicated than just preparing for the worst, isn't it?
I mean, the tricky part is knowing what to do in crisis, in case of a disruption. So calculating, having a strategy, knowing what to do when that happens, being prepared, identifying what could go wrong, and when that would happen, what would you do? And how long is your company prepared to stay in that disruption before they are ready to go?
Yeah. And more specifically, how do you actually do that?
I mean, you start up with looking to your processes, and identifying your services, which ones are, where do you have the value in your company? And from that, you create a strategy. In that strategy, you make a recovering plan. And from that plan, you create a team. And having a team is very important. So in case of a disruption, you need a team that takes care of the crisis that happened, but also need a team that will keep the company going. So knowing in case of in different scenarios what to do is very important.
So I think a lot of various things could actually happen.
Yeah.
How do you actually narrow that down into what affects the actual company? I mean, we've both seen business continuity plans,
Yeah.
and typically it doesn't say meteor hitting
No.
the earth, right?
No.
So how do you actually make it tangible and workable to the company?
I mean, you have to look at the type of business you're running, where in the world you are. I've seen a business continuity plan having scenarios of earthquakes, gun shooting. I haven't seen meteor showers yet, but depending on where you are, it could be a fire. There was a famous bread company that was having bread. They had a new industrial manufacturing, and that burned down, the new one. So knowing what to do, suddenly you can't bake your bread, and you're supplying Sweden with bread. Or for example, internet shuts down or phone services, like everything goes down. What do you have? What do the company have plans to quickly recover from that? Because in that disruption, you lose a lot of money. But a lot of people are also depending on you.
Indeed. And I think that in times of crisis, you could either not be prepared and hope for your good luck and say, let's just see what happens, and more put out fires. No pun intended with that example that you made. Or you could be actually prepared and say, okay, this actually happened, but we have a plan for it. Let's accelerate on that plan together. So that's all about being resilient and being prepared for what might come. We also work a lot together on IPOs and other capital markets related affairs. Let's talk a bit about the investor perspective on business continuity.
I think more and more both owners and investors, they see the importance of having a business continuity plan in place. It's important because you are making money, you're investing in a company, and then you want to make sure that in case of a disruption, they can still go. And once you've done your plan, you also identify suppliers that you work with. So let's say you have a supplier that is critical for, it could be a IT service or a supplier that you buy materials or anything from. And in case they have a disruption, that will affect your business. Suddenly you can't create your product because your supplier is out of stock or their factory has burned down or so. So I think that owners, they look at themselves first, making sure that their company, and then they have those requirements on their suppliers as well. And in IPOs as well, when you go to market, it becomes more and more important to have those plans in place. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be insane, but starting somewhere, identifying, making sure and looking at where are you vulnerable in different scenarios is quite important.
Last week we talked about 3 steps in being resilient. The first is creating that strategy and actually on paper do the work, so to say. Next step is to implement it and working with the change management and the people agenda of it. And third part is to work with your storytelling to actually tell your customers, suppliers and your investors that you are indeed resilient in times of crisis. So we talked about the strategy part and the documentation part of it. Let's talk about a bit of implementation. I know that we also run scenario analysis and practices. Let's talk about that.
So when you identify those different scenarios, you need to have strategies in place, you need to have your team, and then you have to exercise this. You have to try it out and see, okay, what would happen? If this happens, we have a plan, let's follow the plan and see, you improve the plan, and then keeping that alive. I would say the most important thing is to keep that alive all the time.
It's quite similar to doing a fire drill, isn't it?
Yes.
Who here have actually done a business continuity scenario test or an exercise within your companies? Interesting.
I asked a customer a couple of months ago, and sometimes colleagues, they play on the lottery, right? And then and I told them what would happen if your department would win the lottery, and they win the lottery and tomorrow they won't come back. So you lose 10 people in one day because obviously they win millions. There's no, they might love their job, but they still have millions, so they don't have to come in. What would you do? So that's also a crazy scenario, but people play the lottery, so they could win. And how will that impact?
Yeah. What will happen to Pitcher's Corner if you won the lottery tomorrow? Well, you will still be here anyways. You were right, yeah.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yep, I will. And if I'm not there, start without me, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think so as well. No, but it's a good exercise within your companies, but it's also something that stock auditors do actually look at, and it's a requirement if you go to a listed market in Sweden to have those scenarios documented and also tested within your companies. So that's just a good thing to remember.
And look at your suppliers, the suppliers you are dependent on, and what would happen? Do you have a plan B in case your main supplier is out of stock or is going into bankruptcy, or as I said, the company could just burn down. Do you have a plan B? So sometimes it might not be your product or so, but it could be something that you are very dependent on that could affect you in the long run.
We've actually done some studies within PwC analyzing companies that had a business continuity plan for what happens if we're not able to work on site anymore due to a pandemic or due to a fire or due to something else. And it turns out those companies that actually had a resilience plan, meaning had invested in IT infrastructure, had a lot of digital assets, and had trained their people to work in a more digital interface, actually came out greater during the pandemics as opposed to the companies who hadn't trained their people and had that in their resilience plans. So that's just one very clear example that we saw over the last 2 or 3 years. All right, so with that in mind, we talked about climate change resilience last week. We talked about, in general terms, resilience today. So our message to you as people and organization is to be resilient. And please come up and talk to us if you have any questions or further considerations in the area of resilience. Adriana, any final words to the team?
Start small, book a session with your team, and then go crazy. I mean, you have to be both realistic but also creative at the same time. So do that homework, sit for 2 hours and just, what could happen. And there's no, one size fits all, or how you say, it's not a product you buy off the shelf, but it's very individual to each company. So do that as a fun exercise and reach out to us if you need help.
Maybe before the Christmas party.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that as a group exercise to resilience. Thank you very much for participating today.